Makgosi, very good evening to you. Thank you for being with us. So I was talking about how this COVID-19 pandemic has changed the lives of many people, if not all. How has yours changed specifically as a person living with a disability?
Thank you for having me. Good evening to everybody. As a disabled woman who lives by herself, it's been quite interesting because I'm having to depend on everybody outside my home to assist me in this whole process. So it's been a huge adjustment, and every day is a new day. And then just trying to remember that I've gone through something similar when I got disabled in 2016. It's just that now I'm going through it with the whole world. So yeah, it's a mutual experience. It's a very unfortunate one, but that's what it is at the moment.
And let's talk specifically about the similarities between what the rest of the world is going through right now and what you experienced personally when you first became wheelchair-bound in 2016, as you were saying.
Yes. Let's start with the fear. There's something about the uncertainty of this virus and the period of how long it's going to take, when we're going to get a vaccine, and every day we get updates about the different ways that it transmits, and having to deal with the fear of the unknown, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that we are all currently facing. Because it's one thing to be afraid of something that looks like it has a solution. It's another thing to be afraid of something that just keeps looking like it's ongoing. And the loss of control as well, because my disability was a physical one, but loss of control of my entire life, I came up with that, and I see the comparison between that and the COVID virus is that nobody can do anything to control this virus, to protect themselves. Everything is dependent on other people being considerate for your needs and your health, so it's a very difficult position to be in, because we need to work on the assumption that the next person has your best interest at heart, and that when the person leaves their home, they're wearing protective clothing, and they've got their sanitizers, they're washing their hands, because you might come into contact with them. So we're having to rely on the kindness of strangers to expect that they'll be as invested in our lives and in our well-being as we are in theirs.
And just on strangers then, let me ask you if in this shift that the pandemic has forced many of us to adapt to, do you as a South African woman living with a disability feel more seen now, especially by able-bodied people? Because we know that's always been an issue where those of us who are able-bodied do not necessarily pay as much consideration as we should to people who are living with disabilities.
I would like to say that I feel seen, but that would be speaking for myself. And in as much as I'm a poor Black woman, I'm able to live on my own. So there's a privilege to that. The people that don't have access to Twitter and they don't have access to being able to ask for help, those are the unseen ones. So I'm not seen, because when everybody else is talking about how we need to get through this, I've had to ask, with all the announcements that the president has made, then what are the considerations that the government is making? What are the concessions that the government is making with people with disabilities? And then when you look at it, people with disabilities are bundled in with the elderly and with children. So we get lost in those numbers as well, because when people are talking, the elderly, they're thinking your pensioners and whatnot, and then we're looking at children, and the disabled yet again fall through, the sift of the unseen. So we're still unseen, unfortunately, and we're gonna have to keep having this conversation every other day to remind the world that there's disabled people out there and they also need help, and they are also going through the struggles, and they also need food parcels, and who's picking up food parcels for them in the stampedes and all the chaos that's going on outside.
And with that then, it is obviously an ongoing process. Another point you were making earlier is how this pandemic has forced us to care and look out for each other more. But how sustainable is this, given what you've just outlined about how there's still such a long way to walk on this?
It's honestly, it's going to need to be a constant conversation, because I look at this as a way for South Africa to actually find its way as a country and to move forward. Because if we can get through this, we'll pretty much be able to get through anything. Because everything that can save us from the COVID depends on us working together. So my hope is that even after the COVID, we're still able to be kind and to be inclusive and to keep each other in mind and remember that we're all here and there's no other country but South Africa, you know. So yeah, I'm hoping that the lessons that we learn because we're in a traumatic state altogether are the lessons that we take forward, and that will always remind us to see each other, because I think that's the thing that we don't really see each other. Yes, we exist as South Africans, but we don't keep each other in mind, you know. So I'm hoping that this takes us forward with that.
And there's never been a more important time to see others and to be seen. But thank you so much, Makgosi, for speaking to us here on ENC. Makgosi Letimile Skyping with us this hour from Cape Town.